The story begins when a boss introduces Meng Shu, the company's newest intern, taking the opportunity to boost team morale with the news that the project was about to launch and that everyone would receive bonuses. Sitting at his desk, the protagonist was overflowing with hope. Fresh out of college, Meng Shu firmly believed that dedication and hard work were the fastest path to wealth. However, it only took a week for that illusion to crumble. Now he was dragging himself through the late hours of the night in front of his computer, looking more like a broken robot than a human being. With bloodshot eyes and a heavy head, he collapsed onto the keyboard in exhaustion. The feeling of helplessness and discouragement made him question whether all that effort would ever amount to anything. Drained of energy, leaning back in his chair, all he could think was that it would be a relief if everything just ended right then and there. He didn't even feel like sleeping, knowing that the next day would bring more of the same exploitation. Deep down, he wished aliens would just destroy the planet already, if only to put an end to his agony. It was then that an unusual sound cut through the silence of the office and a mysterious screen appeared before him, announcing that the perfect life system had been activated. Meng Shu looked up, disoriented, trying to figure out where the sound had come from. Floating in front of him was a detailed status window displaying his full name, his attributes, and a welcome message to the perfect life system. Meng Shu didn't understand any of it, but excitement quickly took over when he realized he had gained a system. Right then and there, he told Overtime and his boss to go to hell. He threw his arms in the air, celebrating out loud that he would never have to work again. But at that exact moment, an explosion shook the outside of the building. Looking out the window, he saw that the gas pipeline had burst. The street had turned into a scene of total chaos. There were zombies everywhere, attacking people and destroying everything around them. Meng Shu stared at the scene in shock for a few seconds and then quickly pulled the curtain shut to hide. In a panic, he turned back to the system and asked, with some irony, what exactly it was called again, because none of this looked anything like a perfect life. The floating screen confirmed, unmoved, that it was indeed the perfect life system. Meng Shu pointed at the window, arguing that what he was seeing looked more like the end of times. Trying to take a deep breath, he struggled to keep his head together, until someone started pounding hard on the door. He spun around in fright. It was a woman hammering relentlessly on the glass. Meng Shu recognized her immediately. She was the same girl he had crossed paths with in the elevator earlier, someone he had even taken an interest in. But now she was completely unrecognizable, transformed into a terrifying creature. Faced with that sight, he mentally discarded any thought he'd had about her being pretty. The system wasted no time and launched a new mission: flirt with the girl to earn the perfect date. Meng Shu stood frozen with no reaction. Shaking his head, he began rummaging through the office looking for anything useful, gathering some supplies from a water jug and various other spots. Sitting back down, he concluded that there was no point in staying idle. He had a mission ahead of him and needed to understand how the system actually worked in practice. With his mind made up, he walked to the door and unlocked it. When he opened it, the zombie stumbled inside. While she tried to get back up, Meng Shu calmly walked over, introduced himself, and asked if they could be friends. Met with her silence, he said, slightly awkward, that he would take that as a yes. Right after that, he bolted back inside the office and shut the door quickly, leaving the zombie completely confused on the other side. The creature sat on the floor for a moment, as if trying to process what had just happened, but soon went back to her usual behavior and started banging her head against the glass again. Meng Shu wondered out loud if that already counted as having started a conversation. The system stepped in immediately, harshly criticizing his pitiful attempt at flirting. He was surprised to discover that the tasks had ratings. Despite the low score, he earned 1 attribute point and 10 favorability points with the zombie, while also learning that her name was Shiwei. At first he thought the reward was useless, but he soon considered that high favorability might make her stop trying to attack him. The system clarified that as favorability increased, the target would feel an irresistible pull to get closer and would follow his words as if they were a couple. He was confused by that last part, unsure whether he had just gained power over zombies or gotten himself an undead girlfriend. Frustrated by the lack of explanations, Meng Shu complained that the system didn't even offer a basic tutorial. He decided to learn through trial by fire and ordered the attribute point to be allocated to strength. A strange sensation ran through his entire body. The screen confirmed the successful addition, raising his strength to 11. A blue aura surrounded him and he felt infinitely more capable, declaring out loud that he was ready for the apocalypse. In a post-apocalyptic world, attributes like spirit, constitution, and agility are vital for survival. But at that moment, for Meng Shu, nothing outweighed the importance of raw strength. After allocating the point, he felt an indescribable energy pulsing inside him. He gathered the few supplies he had found around the office and recognized that without external resupply, the provisions would last very little. At that moment, the system activated a new task: clock in at work within 17 minutes. The system informed that whoever met the deadline would be blessed by the goddess of luck and have good winds at their back. The reward was 5 attribute points and a chance to stand out in front of the boss. The problem: the time clock was outside, which meant he would need to get past Shiwei to complete the mission. Watching Shiwei through the glass, Meng Shu noticed that her hunger for him seemed to have grown. The system then displayed his 2 open missions: clock in and flirt with the girl. An additional note stated that the flirting mission could be re-evaluated if his performance improved significantly. With that information in hand, Meng Shu came up with what he considered a brilliant idea: knock out both tasks at once. He reasoned that the greatest danger with zombies was infection, and that as long as he wasn't scratched, he would be fine. He grabbed a pair of scissors and started getting ready. Using paper and tape, he improvised a makeshift armor and a spear, declaring that if the system was called the Perfect Life System, it wouldn't give him an impossible task to complete. Fully equipped with his improvised gear, Meng Shu opened the office door and came face to face with a hallway packed with zombies who all turned to stare at him at the same time. Without hesitating, he charged straight toward Shay Wei, declared his feelings out loud, and asked her out. He explained that he didn't own a car or his own apartment, but promised to work hard and suggested dinner on Thursday. While dodging attacks, he bet that bold pickup lines would earn him extra points. To his surprise, the system called him rude and a loudmouth, resulting in the loss of 10 favorability points with Shiwei. The zombie then dropped her irrational expression and stared at him with visible contempt. Seeing the unexpected reaction, Meng Shu was mortified and broke out in a cold sweat. Hidden in a nearby room, 2 men were watching the scene unfold. One of them recognized the voice as Meng Shu's. The other couldn't understand what he was doing, declaring his feelings for Shay Wei, who had been captured by the manager. Shocked, one of them said that Meng Shu had completely lost his mind and that he always knew the guy was weird. What baffled them most, however, was the fact that Shay Wei wasn't attacking the protagonist. Seeing an opportunity, the manager decided to exploit the situation and asked the other man to make some noise to draw attention. After clocking in, Meng Shu turned around and began making his way back to the office. Along the way, he noticed that the other offices were also overrun with zombies and lamented that everyone had turned into creatures with no free will. The system notified him that the task had been completed successfully 3 minutes ahead of the deadline with a rating of average person. He received 5 points and a notification that his boss would start paying closer attention to him. Meng Shu found that completely irrelevant. The world was ending, after all. He took the opportunity to open the system shop, where he found money, cookies, and energy drinks for sale. He found the items completely useless and mentally questioned who would spend 5,000 points on money in the middle of an apocalypse. He concluded that, even though Shay Wei wasn't a direct threat, the entire building was infested, and headed back to the office to plan his next move. As he was getting ready to head back, he heard someone calling his name. The manager appeared at a nearby door, asking Meng Shu to get Shay Wei away from there. The protagonist recognized him as Manager Zank and questioned both the change in tone and the reason he was in the office next door. He decided to at least investigate, reasoning that in an apocalypse, more people meant better chances of survival. The manager smiled and opened the door for Meng Shu to enter, but as soon as the protagonist got close, Zank slammed the door in his face. He thanked him for the distraction and promised a promotion once the crisis was over, leaving Meng Shu locked outside, surrounded by zombies. To everyone's surprise, Shiwei still wasn't attacking the protagonist. Meng Shu mocked the manager, saying he was a natural-born comedian. At that moment, the system congratulated him for getting his boss's attention and reminded him of rule number 1 at work: never go against your superior. Honoring the rule in his own way, Meng Shu cheerfully wished the manager a good morning and happily suggested they get back to work in their office. Zank refused on the spot and told him to figure it out himself, leaving the 2 men hiding inside completely terrified. Among themselves, they wondered if Meng Shu had finally gone completely insane. Desperate, they tried to lock the door and pile furniture up as a barricade. Zank was screaming at the other one to hurry up, but Meng Shu broke through everything with a single well-placed kick, sending the manager crashing to the floor. With a smile on his face, he greeted his coworkers and casually announced that he was heading back to work, then said his goodbyes. The 2 of them just stood there, unable to process what had just happened. As he left the office, Meng Shu noticed that Shiwei was following him. Then she spotted the other 2 men in the room and lunged toward them. As she moved into the space, Meng Shu took a brief moment to listen to their screams for help, and then, without hesitating, shut the door and locked them inside together with the zombie. The system praised him for his conduct and closed the task with a perfect rating. He received a letter of recommendation and 5 more professional experience points, though he lost favorability with his leader and coworkers. A secret achievement is unlocked with the title Generation Z Reforming the Workplace. The reward comes with 5,000 in cash, and the system suggests he use the amount to take his coworkers out for a barbecue. Meng Shu finds it at least ironic to receive money in the middle of a disaster, but keeps it anyway, figuring it might come in handy down the road. He then opens his email and finds the letter of recommendation he had earned. The letter gives him the chance to choose a new profession, which immediately excites him with the prospect of becoming a warrior or a mage. Without thinking twice, he accepts and confirms. To his complete disappointment, the profession granted is that of flyer distributor. He is stunned and wonders how on earth he is supposed to hand out flyers in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Despite the absurdity of the situation, he acknowledges that the system has its merits and begins to think about what he will advertise. The system presents 3 task options: distribution for a swimming academy, a law office, and a real estate agency. Meng Shu goes with the swimming academy since it requires less effort and offers more experience. The system scolds him for the opportunistic choice, but he ignores the criticism and questions what experience is actually good for. A notification clarifies that with every level gained in the profession, he will receive attribute points and special abilities. He reflects that, as absurd as it may seem, the system is right to start from the bottom rungs. If he raises his attributes high enough, he might be able to survive the apocalypse and live to see the world rebuilt. The task is confirmed and a stack of flyers appears in his hands. The system instructs him to shout promotional slogans while distributing them to earn extra experience. In the hallway, he runs into Shiwei again, who stares at him with pure contempt. Her favorability drops immediately. Meng Shu tries to make some kind of connection, but with every new attempt the indicator falls even further. He grows desperate watching the numbers sink. He bemoans the situation and says that if Shiwei truly knew him, she would see that he is an optimistic person full of energy. In a gentler attempt, he approaches her with the friendliest smile he can manage, but the favorability keeps dropping. Suddenly, cries for help cut through the air. Manager Zank and his coworker were in the middle of turning into zombies. Meng Shu walks up to the two of them and confronts them, saying they tried to take advantage of him first and that they have no reason to hold a grudge. With a crooked smile, he grabs the flyers and starts handing them out to the two. Even without any reaction from them, he simply tosses the flyers their way. The system scolds him for throwing the materials at the feet of the customers, but he defends himself by claiming they dodged. He questions why the two tried to sabotage him and declares that he won't waste any more time talking about it. Meng Shu announces that even in death, those two won't make it to paradise and that he personally will arrange new jobs for them. He explains that to work they will need their legs, and then without ceremony, he tears the legs off one of the zombies. Shortly after, he decides to wrap up the performance and announces that he will put them to work cleaning the building. On another floor, a woman's hand scrolls across a phone screen, sliding through a contact list. The girl reads the news about the zombie outbreak and cries desperately, begging for some explanation for all the chaos. Suddenly, a kick echoes against the door. Terrified, she realizes something is approaching. From outside, she hears an upbeat voice. Meng Shu is offering swimming lessons and fitness conditioning for zombies. The girl is completely dumbfounded by what she is hearing. Huddled on the floor, she cannot make sense of what quality customer means. She tries to lock the door, but it is already too late. The zombies break through the glass while Meng Shu keeps his sales pitch going without missing a beat. Stunned, she peeks through the crack. Meng Shu explains that his club was specially developed for zombies from the corporate world and tries to convince them that learning to swim would make them more competitive in the job market. He wraps up with the offer of a free trial class. The girl hides behind the door in a state of complete shock, whispering to her mother that she must be hallucinating. She picks up her phone and starts typing a final message, describing how she witnessed a man selling gym memberships to the undead, in case that turned out to be the last thing she ever did. Meng Shu declares that the two zombies are no longer of any immediate use and summons them to follow him. With his new companions acting as sidekicks, he begins exploring the building with far greater ease. He defines this strategy as positioning, a term he borrows from video games. After a while, he decides to take a break. Having distributed over 200 flyers, he opens the system screen to check his progress and sees the level up option flashing on the display. With an ironic smile, he confirms the advancement in his promising career as a flyer distributor. The system validates the jump to level 1. As a reward, Meng Shu gains attribute bonuses for resistance to extreme weather conditions and for movement speed. Excited by the growing indicators, he also discovers his new ability, reading people. The ability allows him to identify the profession and level of any target, as long as the gap between them is not too large. He leans back in a chair, satisfied with what he has accomplished, until the sound of explosions outside brings him back to reality. Helicopters cross the sky as the chaos continues to spread. He calculates that there are enough zombies in the building to meet his goals without needing to risk going outside. Using the new ability, he analyzes one of the zombies and finds that the favorability is at -100. He grows discouraged seeing that not even taking them out for a walk improved the score. He concludes that pushing conversation won't do any good and realizes he has yet to hand flyers to them. Suddenly, a brilliant idea lights up his mind. With a mischievous grin, he announces a 20% discount for friend referrals and a special offer, which he calls a bone-breaking discount for anyone who refuses. He hurls the flyers in the direction of the zombies. The favorability of one of them climbs to -50, and it hesitates for a moment before moving forward. Even so, the creature lunges at Meng Shu, who fights back with the spear. The zombie goes down defeated. Meng Shu drops a flyer on the body and moves on. New zombies appear in the hallway. Using the reading ability, he notices that these ones have no favorability level. He deduces that Shiwei and and manager Zank have their own indicators because they are directly tied to system tasks. He turns to his zombie companions and asks, in a philosophical tone, whether they don't find this world completely out of the ordinary. He tries to slap one of them but misses. Meng-Shu concludes that he is the only rational being in the group and asks, with a certain dignity, that they not hate him so much. He unties the ropes binding them and gets ready to continue the journey. A new task appears on the screen, lunch break is over, and he needs to head up to the 11th floor to negotiate with Supervisor Lin. He smiles at the new mission. The elevator doors open. Meng-Shu heads to the elevators and decides to bring his zombie companions along, not wanting to face the supervisor alone. He reflects that it is good to have harmonious and collaborative colleagues. The group then sets off toward the objective. Meng-Shu moves through the hallway at a brisk pace, pulling the two zombies along by their improvised leashes. He motivates them with shouts, declaring that hard work forges an unshakable spirit, while the creatures respond only with growls. Rounding a corner, the trio comes face to face with a horde of zombies completely blocking the path. With a fearless grin, Meng-Shu yells at them to clear the way and shoves Shei-Wei and manager Zank forward as the vanguard. The zombie manager turns out to be surprisingly effective in combat, attacking the other creatures with brutal force. However, a visibly different and noticeably more robust zombie appears, blocking the path. Meng-Shu doesn't hesitate and charges toward it with the spear at the ready. The battle intensifies and he has to deal with multiple enemies at the same time. At one point, he lands a direct hit on a blonde zombie that was trying to flank him and finishes her off with a precise strike, clearing another stretch of the hallway. By the end of the confrontation, the floor is covered with fallen zombies. Finally, the protagonist reaches the 11th floor. With a focused gaze, he mentally prepares himself for what lies ahead. Upon reaching Supervisor Lin's door, he dispatches the last remaining zombie with ease, opens the door, and finds two employees huddled in terror in a corner. With slow, deliberate steps, he steps into a pool of blood on the floor and asks, with complete calm, whether Supervisor Lin is present. He introduces himself as Meng-Shu from Janglin Technology, sent to handle the matter of the parking situation. With a confident smile, he inquires as to where the supervisor is, since they had a scheduled meeting. The system congratulates him on the intimidation and informs him that the employees of Wyong International have been completely destabilized. The task is closed with a perfect rating, earning him a solid sum of cash, experience, and attribute points. With the mission wrapped up, he takes the opportunity to scout the available resources on the 11th floor. Meng-Shu and his zombie companions spread out across the floor. He ties a rope to the spear and secures the two zombies to make sure they don't wander off. He glances at the clock and is caught off guard. It is only 3 in the afternoon. He laments to himself how thoroughly work has conditioned him to the point of thinking about clocking in the middle of the end of the world. To clear his head, he cracks open a bottle of soda, settles into a chair, and organizes his thoughts to map out his next steps. Analyzing the situation with a cool head, he concludes that the virus may have emerged randomly, but the simultaneous loss of cell phone signal is far too suspicious to be a coincidence. This leads him to consider that it might be a coordinated attack on a global scale. His #1 priority, therefore, is to expand his combat capability. With that in mind, he decides to allocate the attribute point he earned to strength. The system confirms and his strength rises to 12. He determines that he will keep investing in that attribute until he can take down zombies without any effort. With the plan set, he pulls up the system panel to review his status. The screen shows that he has already accumulated enough experience points to advance in both professions, but he notices that the clerk profession requires a considerably larger amount. Curious, he wonders what attribute the clerk profession develops. After all, the flyer distributor had boosted his agility. Without any hesitation, he dumps all his available points into the clerk profession and confirms the choice to see what happens. The system informs him that clerks develop the spirit and constitution attributes, but issues a warning. Overworking will cause spirit to decrease. With the level up, he receives 2 spirit points and half a constitution point, along with the professional ability to kill time. He furrows his brow, unsure what that ability means. The description clarifies that it is a passive ability that reduces how often his boss notices him. He finds the perk quite convenient and concludes that it will make gathering supplies with his 2 zombie companions considerably safer. At that moment, a new daily task is triggered, requiring him to work with dedication. Meng-Shu falls into despair when he realizes he will have to put in a full shift even during the apocalypse, and complains that the system has absolutely no sense of timing. Resigned, he turns on the computer and forces himself to work. He sits down and starts typing, dragging his fingers with monumental weariness. Shortly after, the system announces the end of the shift and releases the rewards for dedicated work. Relieved, Meng-Shu stretches back in the chair and celebrates the end of that day of torment. He stands up, walks to the time clock, and punches out. When he returns to his desk, he finds a pile of cash and wonders out loud what good it would do him. The system explains that the money can be used in raffles with guaranteed special prizes. Excited, he decides to take part right away, selecting the option for 10 consecutive draws. The results: instant noodles, bottled water, a suit, and a bodyguard talent. Curious, he looks into what the talent is. The description states that upon using it, an experienced bodyguard will be summoned within a 3-kilometer radius, with no guarantee of loyalty, however. Even so, he uses the item in the hope of attracting some competent specialist. Mangshu begins to weigh whether it makes sense to open a company to unlock new tasks. In the meantime, he enjoys a bowl of instant noodles. He concludes that if he is going to do something, he is going to do it in style. He pictures himself as a successful businessman, cigar in his mouth and glass of wine in hand. Satisfied, he lets out a burp and yawns, feeling completely ready for whatever comes next. Suddenly, a system notification alerts him to the presence of intruders in the building. A new task is activated to protect company property. With a sinister smile, Mangshu declares that this place is his home and that he will not let anyone loot what belongs to him. In another part of the building, a masked man takes out a few zombies with ease. He complains that a woman drew the entire horde with her screaming and asks his companion how they should proceed. The man named Zan suggests searching the building for supplies since they lost everything they had. He tells his partner to go ahead and says he will cover the rear. The other man is suspicious but goes anyway. Zan draws a knife as he watches his companion head up the stairs. The blonde man stops suddenly when he picks up a sound. Zan asks what happened and he replies that he heard footsteps and is afraid they might be zombies. Zan dismisses the idea and concludes there must be survivors on the floor. The blonde agrees without much conviction and keeps climbing. He peeks through a crack and gets startled. Mangshu appears behind him and greets him casually. The blonde stumbles backward with his heart in his throat. Zan asks how many people are on the floor and whether there is any food available. Mangshu, with an innocent air, says the company is privately owned and questions where the security guards were to stop them from getting in. He complains that he will need to file a formal complaint against the security company. He crosses his arms with a stern expression, warns that trespassing is a crime, and threatens to call a lawyer. The two intruders freeze, unsure how to react. Zan stares him down and says he clearly has no idea what the situation is like out there. Out of patience for conversation, Zan moves forward with a baseball bat. Mangshu sighs and decides it is time to show what he is made of. He calls on his zombie companions to join the fight, since the building's security is out of commission. The blonde shouts at Zan to go first, since there are more people on the floor. Mangshu and the two intruders face each other in fighting stances. The blonde hurls a knife at the protagonist, but Mangshu dodges it effortlessly and charges at him. He takes the guy down with a single well-placed hit. With the smile of someone who is thoroughly enjoying himself, he twirls the lug wrench and declares himself a force of nature. Zan wields 2 baseball bats and braces for the confrontation. He acknowledges that Mangshu has skill, but does not back down. The protagonist, almost in passing, mentions that he soaked the lug wrench in iodine before the fight. He charges alongside his zombie companions, warning the intruder that he is asking to regret this. He finally gets the chance to deliver the line he has been saving for a while. With a calm gaze, he settles into his battle stance. Zan panics when he sees the zombies up close. Mangshu turns his attention to the blonde on the ground. The guy completely breaks down, sweating cold. He screams for his brother and bolts toward the stairs. Mangshu cuts him off, saying no one is going anywhere until they answer legally for what they have done. He points at both of them and orders his zombie companions to advance. But the creature stands still. He is left embarrassed. He realizes the zombies are disgusted by him and simply refuse to get close. Zan grabs the blonde by the arm to stop him from running and questions why the zombies are not attacking Mangshu. The protagonist begins climbing the stairs with slow, deliberate steps. The two intruders watch as Mangshu and his companions approach without any rush. He solemnly reveals that he is the company's public safety advocate. The blonde asks his brother what they should do and Zan tells him to attack the zombies. The guy flat out refuses, overwhelmed by fear. Zan proposes that they jump from the 3rd floor to escape. The blonde peers out the window, sees the street completely overrun with zombies, and argues that jumping will only attract more of them, making everything worse. With no apparent way out, Zan decides to stop running and face the confrontation head-on. He charges full force at Mangshu, who calmly warns that whatever comes next will be self-defense. Manager Zank steps forward to shield the protagonist while he holds Shaywei back. The man in the hockey mask does not back down and delivers a powerful blow to the zombie's head. Even after the brutal impact, the creature shows no sign of pain, leaving the intruder completely stunned. Taking advantage of the distraction, Mangshu hurls his lug wrench with precision, and it collides directly with Zan's bat. The impact throws him off balance and he falls to the floor. Seeing the zombie closing in, Zan shuts his eyes and accepts what is coming. The creature advances without mercy while Mangshu cleans his ear with complete composure and remarks that he warned them not to break in. Mangshu complains that now he is going to have to deal with the mess and laughs at Zan for still writhing on the floor even in his weakened state. He turns to the blonde with a heavy look and warns that if he tries to escape, Manager Zank will personally come after him. The guy goes pale with terror and starts to tremble. Huddled in a corner, he laments out loud that a so-called public safety advocate is using zombies to beat people up. Mangshu looks at the stained tool in his hand and considers that he may have gone a little overboard with the self-defense. He steps onto Zan's body, looks at his companions beside him and says sarcastically that he will arrange for an ambulance. He tells the blonde to call the police while he calls the defense attorney. Then he shoves the phone toward the guy and asks if he has a hearing problem. The blonde takes the device with trembling hands and makes the call, thinking to himself that this guy is definitely a psychopath. Shortly after, he starts compulsively apologizing over the intercom, throwing all the blame onto Zan and claiming he was coerced. Meng Shu stares at him with contempt and questions what laws would even be for if apologies fixed everything. After that, he tells the guy to get out of his sight, since he's too tired to keep dealing with him. With the smile of someone who already knows how this ends, he suggests the guy jump from the 3rd floor, assuring him the height is not enough to kill anyone. Without blinking, the guy breaks the window and throws himself toward the zombie-filled street below. Meng Shu turns to Zan and casually observes that the injuries look pretty serious. Mockingly, he comments that at least now he will have the luck of being taken care of by a beauty like Shiwei. With that, he calmly says his goodbyes and walks away, leaving his 2 companions to handle what is left unfinished. The office door opens, revealing the interior completely empty. Back to his routine, Meng Shu picks up another stack of flyers and decides that is enough for today. Suddenly, the system fires off a notification informing him that the zombies' favorability has increased because he fed them. Meng Shu is outraged by the notification and demands to know who authorized the zombies to like him, going as far as asking for a refund on the food. Then he throws the flyers up in the air and takes off running, saying he needs to talk to Shiwei and manager Zank urgently to reverse the situation, because there's absolutely no way he can allow them to develop a fondness for him. At that moment, a new system window materializes before him. The screen encourages him to walk the path of the perfect life through entrepreneurship and activates a long-term mission: open his own business. Meng Shu grows suspicious and asks out loud if the system is monitoring his thoughts, since he had just been considering exactly that. Shortly after, he starts imagining what it would be like to have a food stall and reaches the conclusion that the idea is not all that absurd, until his mind produces the image of a customer sneezing on the food, and he is snapped back to reality by the fact that zombies do not have much of an appetite for that sort of thing. A new task appears, stating that the supervisor on the 12th floor has still not moved his car from the reserved parking spot, and that Meng Shu needs to take care of it. The mission requires the creation of a customer service company to go up against Antiang International, with quite generous rewards. The protagonist is left speechless by the complexity of the challenge, but with a resolute smile, he accepts and comments that the system has already mapped out his entire path. He then outlines his action plan: repair the brains of his zombie companions and fire 60% of the rival company's employees. Without wasting a second, he marches toward the entrance of Onion International, ready to kick off operations. With his 2 companions at his side, he points forward and orders the advance, regardless of whether their favorability is still negative. Shortly after, he launches himself at a horde of zombies, cutting through them with the lug wrench. With fast, precise movements, he and his companions begin letting go of every zombie employee they encounter along the way. In no time, the hallway is clear and littered with fallen creatures, while the trio comes out almost completely unscathed. Meng Shu comments that he must have laid off at least a dozen people in that push. He wipes his hand on one of the fallen zombies and declares that it is enough for now. He will wait until he levels up once more before finishing the job. With that, he turns around and calls everyone to fall back. Meanwhile, in a nearby bathroom, the door remains locked from the inside and a few empty cans are scattered across the floor. Inside the bathroom, a young woman lay on the floor, exhausted and with an empty stomach. She sits up with a jolt and quietly complains about how long the vendor is taking, with no sign of him anywhere. In tears, she pleads for him to show up soon, as she is at her breaking point. Suddenly, a voice echoes from outside. It was Meng Shu, in the middle of yet another sales pitch to zombies. The girl furrows her brow, completely confused, as he proclaims that the city's biggest real estate developer has just launched an unmissable new offer. She covers her mouth with her hand in horror as she hears the protagonist suggesting the zombies buy a property to get rid of the stress of everyday life. With trembling fingers, she decides to crack the door open to investigate. When she does, she freezes in shock and asks if he ever heard her calling out. With a tear sliding down her face, she stares at the protagonist in disbelief at what her eyes are registering. Peeking through the crack, she sees Meng Shu completely surrounded by zombies and mentally begs them to stop attacking the man of her dreams. She reaches her arm out through the door as if there were something she could do. She keeps murmuring that he is the only one who matters to her, while Meng Shu dodges an attack with a smile on his face. With a precise, fluid movement, he runs one of the creatures through with the spear. Without stopping, he mocks the zombies by saying they are eager to check out the new properties and asks them to form an orderly line. He then leaps over the creatures, keeping up the relentless pace of the attack. The young woman ends up on her knees on the bathroom floor, frozen and covered in splatter. Meng Shu stops amid the fallen bodies and she watches him, thinking he is terrifying. He wipes the back of his hand across his forehead, drying the sweat, while the survivor wonders if this is actually a human being. He turns his face with a closed-off, resolute expression, ready for whatever comes next. The girl shrinks back down to the bathroom floor, still processing everything. Shortly after, she hears footsteps approaching and realizes they are heading in her direction. Meng Shu stops right in front of the door where she is hiding. With a friendly smile, He introduces himself and asks if she is interested in swimming lessons, legal consultation, or a pre-sale real estate purchase. The system notifies him that he has reached level 2 as a clerk while he faces the girl huddled on the floor. Hand on her chest and visibly relieved, she asks with a trembling voice if he is still alive. Meng-shu breaks into a wide smile and holds up his flyers, celebrating that he has finally found a living person to be a customer. Shortly after, the two of them move to a law office to talk in peace. Seated on the sofa, the girl introduces herself as Chenjul to the supposed lawyer, who is actually the zombie manager tied to a chair. She begins to lay out a legal issue involving a friend, but stops short when she notices the unsettling appearance of the lawyer. Meng-shu takes control of the situation and, flanked by his two zombie companions, faces Chenjul with an intimidating expression. He extends his hand toward her with a crooked smile. The girl recoils in fear and wonders how this man manages to control the undead. Meng-shu loses his patience with her silence and unleashes a string of criticism, questioning what she learned in college and demanding an answer. Unable to hold back any longer, Chenjul opens up. A friend of hers had been mistreated at work and ended up being assaulted by her own boss. With that, the system notifies Meng-shu that he has attracted a client and completed the task, leveling up in the flyer distributor profession. The protagonist breaks into a satisfied smile and compliments the work of both of them. He approaches the girl, lug wrench in hand, and calls her by name with an unnerving calmness. Meng-shu congratulates her on her great performance and invites her to come back anytime she needs legal guidance, swimming lessons, or wants to purchase a property. Moved, she thanks him and says he is a very kind person. With a mischievous smile, he cuts her off and asks if she has already settled her payment. Chenjul is completely thrown off. Meng-shu points to the zombie manager and explains that the consultation with the lawyer costs 200 per hour and that she owes payment for the half hour used. The zombie manager seems overcome with emotion at the recognition and begins to tear up. Faced with the protagonist's airtight logic, Chenjul agrees that he is not wrong. Seizing the moment, Meng-shu mentions that he is planning to open a business and invites her to be part of the team. She considers the proposal and concludes that, as eccentric as he may be, he is strong enough to keep her safe. Without further delay, she bows her head and accepts the offer, presenting herself as his new employee. The system congratulates Meng-shu on the hire, but warns that opening a company requires licenses and a whole range of bureaucratic procedures. A screen with the new company's details appears next, and he complains to the system about all that paperwork in the middle of the apocalypse. Even so, he turns to his new employee and lets her know they need to go to the 4th floor, since building a business from scratch is no simple matter. Even the zombie manager nods his head in agreement with the new boss. Along the way, Meng-shu offers Chenjul a soda, revealing an unexpectedly considerate side. Back at the office, he announces that he has chosen the name for the company. It will be Peace and Order, and the system confirms the registration successfully. Chenjul breaks into a smile and gives a thumbs up, enthusiastically approving the name. The protagonist goes to the window and feels like a winner for already having his own business so early on. His new employee claps non-stop, saying he is amazing. Suddenly, an unexpected sound cuts through the mood. It is her stomach growling with hunger, and she grows embarrassed. Meng-shu then shows her a pile of instant noodles and tells her to eat as much as she wants, since it is pretty cheap after all. With her eyes lighting up, Chenjul thanks him and declares that he is the best boss in the world. Without ceremony, she begins devouring the noodles with hunger she did not even know she had. Every bite is a revelation for someone who has not eaten in days. She feels like she is in paradise and wonders if this is what they call true happiness. After eating, she leans back on the sofa with a hot drink in hand, visibly more at ease. Meng-shu then officially appoints her as the company's clerk and tells her to print out an employment contract. Chenjul is baffled and wonders why on earth she would be doing spreadsheets in the middle of the end of the world. With a mocking smile, he asks if she does not know how to use Excel, and she, slightly taken aback, confirms that she does. Right after, he points to the door and introduces the new coworkers, Shewei and Zank. Chenjul panics at the sight of the two zombies, but Meng-shu calms her down by saying they are just the security guards. With an amused look, he warns her to keep her distance from them, since they are not exactly friendly. She is terrified and begins to imagine the darkest possible scenarios, even wondering if she is already dead and all of this is nothing but a delusion. Meng-shu snaps her out of the daydream and tells her to get back to work. He points to her old desk and encourages her to become the company's first manager. With a determined smile, Chenjul settles into the chair and promises to give it her all, which leaves Meng-shu visibly pleased. Without wasting any time, she is already getting to work on the computer as the protagonist walks away. The system confirms that the new employee is operational. With a confident smile, Meng-shu assesses that she has a lot of potential and that there is hope for the company. He then lets her know that he needs to head out to take care of the company's paperwork at various locations, the bank, administration offices, and so on. Chenjul stares at him with an expression of pure disbelief. finding it absolutely absurd to be worrying about legal bureaucracy in the middle of an apocalypse. The protagonist also reveals that he is going in search of a high-level talent and instructs Chenjul to welcome this person warmly and to conceal the true nature of their two co-workers. With all of that in mind, he feels confident in his plan. He knows that an experienced bodyguard will be a key asset for both survival and the expansion of his new empire. Suddenly, a system notification pops up. The screen congratulates him on the achievement of having launched a company and rewards him with experience, 1 attribute point, 1 skill point, and 100,000 in cash. A note informs him that the amount will be stored in the system and can be withdrawn when needed. Meng-Shu wastes no time and uses the new attribute point right away, allocating it to strength. A golden aura erupts around him and he feels his body pulse with renewed power. The system screen displays his full status, listing his 3 professions: clerk, intern, FLIRT distributor, and now president. His attributes have been updated and his strength has reached 14. He takes in the result with visible pride. He checks his pocket and finds that he has 10 points and 102,000 in total assets. With satisfaction, he reviews his professional abilities, kill time, and read people. In a moment of pure excitement, he envisions himself taking peace and order to the top of the world while Chenjul watches him without understanding a thing. Taking advantage of the boss being gone, she turns to an online group to vent to her friends about the absurdity of building a company during the apocalypse. She breaks out in a cold sweat and falls apart, not knowing what to do in the face of so much madness. To make things worse, she peeks through the door and sees her 2 zombie coworkers staring at her in a deeply unsettling way. In a panic, she turns back to the computer and starts firing off urgent messages asking for help in the group. Meanwhile, Meng-Shu arrives at the parking lot and begins searching for the bodyguard summoned by the system item. Suddenly, the headlights of a red sports car flash right beside him, catching his attention. He walks over to the vehicle, deducing that it must belong to the talent he is waiting for. He tries to open the door, but it is locked. At that moment, the system notifies him that, to solve the new company's transportation problems, he has just been given a part-time job as a rideshare driver. Meng-Shu contemplates his reflection in the car window, which returns an expression far darker than expected. The system advises him to face life with a smile to attract good luck. Meng-Shu takes the advice far too seriously. With a completely unhinged grin, he shouts at the zombies to be polite while attacking them mercilessly. In the middle of the battle, he recognizes one of the creatures as Ti-Wang and mocks him, saying he did not even know he had become the boss. Hidden nearby, a group of survivors watches everything in terror while one of them tries to muffle a woman's screams with his hand. Paying the audience no attention whatsoever, the protagonist drives another zombie through with his spear, leaving the onlookers even more desperate. With a sarcastic smile, he recognizes another creature as Old Zhao, showing that he knew the regulars of the place very well. Faced with that disturbing scene, 2 of the survivors lose control and break into a run through the parking lot. Leaving no room for escape, Meng-Shu launches himself at the enemies with fierce determination, his eyes filled with silent threat and the posture of someone who will not retreat. His handmade spear, soaked in the black fluid of the creatures already taken down, is living proof of the violence of that clash. With the ground cleared around him, the hero remains motionless above the defeated and lets out a loud complaint about how bone-crushing all of this is. He lets his body drop into a well-earned rest and grumbles at the undead that keep coming toward him after all. After all, handing out flyers would be a much easier task if the creatures at least had a shred of courtesy. Sweeping the parking lot with his gaze, now turned into an improvised cemetery, Meng-Shu wonders out loud whether anyone would still have the energy to request a rideshare in a scene like that. He approaches the red car and finds it absurd that someone would need to call a driver from inside a garage. That makes no sense to him. But the instant his hands touch the steering wheel, the engine awakens with a savage roar and flames burst from the front of the vehicle. In seconds, the car surges forward, the tires scream against the asphalt, and the machine disappears at full speed, tearing out of the parking lot without looking back.